What's going on, everybody? Evan here with Evan's Detailing and Polishing. Right here, I've got something really unique that we are going to polish today. Our good friend Brad Linke sent me a bunch of weird stuff from Louisville. Him and his dad are building a really cool truck. And as you can see here, this one is really rough. It's stainless, of course, but it's in really rough shape. Now, if we look at this one, look how much nicer that looks. So I'm gonna do a real quick tutorial on how to polish these. Normally I'd tell you grab a 6,000 RPM grinder. I'm not going to today. Actually, we're running a red wheel at about 2,400, 2,800. So we don't tear all these vent holes. We don't want to tear those off real bad. But look at the difference it makes just by putting a good polish on them. So I'm going to hand the phone over here to Anthony, and we're going to walk through how we do this. Alright, so first thing I do is I have a Phillips headed screw with a big washer on it. I'm actually going to run that down in here into one of the vent holes, and I'm going to put one on each side, and then I'm going to use my foot to keep it from bending it and rolling it. That's the easy part. The buffing is the part that isn't so fun. So I've just got a standard pallet here. I'm just going to run a couple screws in it so that it doesn't move around on me, because as soon as I start running this buffer, it's going to put a ton of torque on this piece here, and it's going to want to go flying because it's going to want to pull off. So I'm going to buff about maybe 2/3 of this thing, and then we'll roll it and buff the other third. So let me spin her out to the other side here. Now if you want to zoom in here, Anthony, get in close and kind of see where I'm putting the screw in. So I'm putting it in right in here in one of the vent holes. And I'm just going to run that down. Almost stabbed myself multiple times today. I'm going to run that down just so it holds it tight. I don't want to get it too tight because I don't want to make this thing go flat. But what I'm doing is I'm just getting it so that it doesn't move. Now, if you can see, it wiggles, but I don't want that to wiggle too much, because if it does, it's going to bend them. So when you're watching me buff, I'm going to have my foot inside of here propping it up so that I can keep pressure on the buff, but at the same time, not too much pressure that I end up bending one of the vents. So here we go. PPE is the most important thing you can do, because this thing, as you can see, we just finished up the other one. I am covered in dust. So if you can wear your full face respirator, half face respirator, you'll be much happier at the end of the day. If you want to come over to this side, you'll be able to see, because I'm going to start on the right here, work my way to the left, and then I'm going to go around to the other side and do the same thing. Real quick before I forget, we're using our dip treated red from GoShineOn.com and our black bar. And then when we're done, we're just going to use a standard white wheel with our green bar. But yeah, this red and black is going to cut through it real quick. You're actually going to be able to watch this change super, super fast. This old stainless is really good quality, so it's going to buff out really good. All right, so as you saw, I worked just a small section The reason for that is the buff is catching on all these little grooves and it's kind of raking it out. It's actually drying the buff out. So if I tried to work too big of a section, my rouge is going to get dry and I'd have to re-rouge every couple of gaps. But if I keep my pattern small, and now when I come to the next one, you'll see I'm going to overlap down into this section. If I keep it small, I can keep rouge on it longer and I can get further down the piece. One thing you're going to notice in future videos coming up is I'm going to start talking a lot more of the little intricate stuff like that, where working a small section and then coming back and filling it in is going to make it better. So I'm going to keep rolling. Let's do it. All right, now I'm gonna come on this side and work my way that way and overlap it in the middle. Now on something like this where it's corrugated, overlapping in the middle isn't a really bad thing where you're gonna leave a line in the center. If you were working on a fuel tank or something, you wouldn't wanna do that because you'd leave a real hard line. But since it's corrugated, you're really not gonna see those overlap spots and the line where the two butt together. But when I come back, I'm gonna white wheel it and I'm gonna do the same thing, only I'm gonna cover about half at a time instead of a third at a time. So here we go, keep rolling. All right, while I'm swapping this buff out, I can already hear some of the questions that are gonna be coming in. I can already hear one of you telling me, well, how do I know when I'm out of rouge when I can't even see a rouge line? Well, the way I tell is I just watch for it to stop cutting. As soon as it stops cutting and I notice that I'm not getting anywhere, that's when I know I'm out of compound. So I just keep watching behind where I'm buffing, not ahead of where I'm buffing. I'm not chasing that rouge line. I'm actually watching the polish line just behind it. And yeah, once it stops cutting, I just stop, throw a little more rouge on, and I keep going. Now, I've seen a lot of people over the years going this way with their buffs. Honestly, that chews up your buff even worse. At least when you're going with the grain, the buff kind of skips across. When you're going this way, you're grinding against it and you're just chewing through compound. So it's pretty simple. Go with it both directions. Now I have an untreated white. You can use a 40 ply white if you wanted to. And we're gonna just use some green rouge. We're just gonna go back across it that same direction. Now this part doesn't take very long, it's super quick. So I'm just gonna literally go right across it, spin around to the other side, do the same thing from the other side. It goes pretty quick. There it is, simple as that. There is a million dust particles floating around in here from that white buff. It's literally just covered in dust now. But that's as simple as it is. And like I said, I run it at about 2,400 RPM. You can run it at 6,000, but the likelihood of a 6,000 grabbing one of these edges and tearing it is really high. So I run it right about 2,400. I use a used dip treated red with a black compound. If you don't have any used ones, take a brand new one and just rake it out really good so that it doesn't tear one of these holes right away, and then just finish it off with an untreated white with a green. And it's super simple. I'm not gonna make you guys muscle through us flipping this thing over and finishing the backside. I wanna thank you guys for stopping by. Hopefully this taught you a little bit more about stainless. Super simple. It's not our normal two-step stainless process, only because it's corrugated. But I hope you guys learned something from these videos. I appreciate you stopping by. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe. And thanks for sticking around to the end. See you on the next one.